Chris.
I'm Scott.
And we're two guys brewing.
About to get drunk.
Yeah. Tonight we're going to play with an all-grain batch here, and we're going to do it, not the brew in a bag style like we did last week, but we're going to do more of a, with my ghetto setup. There's a lot of, I basically use stuff that I found out in the garage.
It's an all-grain style. We're going to use a cooler for a mash tun.
No, actually, we're just going to use it for sparging. I'm going to actually use my brew kettle as for mash tun.
Okay.
But you certainly can use a cooler for a mash tun. And
it's actually a lauter tun is what we're going to use it for, I suppose. Yeah. We're going to use a filter. So all the grain will go into the brew kettle on heat, and we can control the temperature. Yep. And then into the cooler with a filter. Got some ghetto screens and try to make a grain bed to filter the grains too. So you do a little.
And if you're real lucky, it'll screw it up, and I can show you how I usually fix it when I mess it up. And I'll be honest, it's not the best. There's definitely much better ways to do it, but it works for me. I've made many a batch this way, and they're entirely drinkable, and it is very cheap. I'm not spending, $100 on equipment. It's all stuff that's in my garage. So.
That's kind of how it works a lot of times at home.
Yeah, for recipe tonight, we just picked up 7 pounds of 2-row and 2 pounds of Munich. And I got hops over here. We haven't really decided which hops we're going to use. We'll figure that out later. And I'm not sure what kind of yeast we're going to use either. I'll go digging around down in the basement and figure out what I got. But
we're going to end up with kind of a generic pale ale.
Yeah.
It'd be drinkable.
It'll probably be a little darker than a pale ale.
Far beer.
Yeah. Something to drink.
I think it would be in the pale ale category.
Sure. Why not? It depends on how much hops I put in.
Well, that's true. I don't think you have enough there to really get it up to IPA standards.
Well, I probably do, but I'm not doing that. All right.
Ready.
All right, so let's get some water. Oh, you know what? We're going to do a single infusion tonight. I'm not going to mess around with step infusions. We'll just bring it up to 152 and hold it there for an hour. And maybe we'll do a...
how many gallons of water do you want to start with?
Let's start with 6.5. All right. And that should be a good number.
Hi, I'm Steve Spears. I'm the owner of Dunkirk Homebrew. We are a local homebrew shop here in the Dunkirk, Fredonia area, located at 3375 East Main Road, Dunkirk, New York. We are a full-line supplier of beer and wine brewing equipment and supplies. Come on down. Most of my customers become my friends. Thank you.
So yeah, we went down to our local homebrew supply shop. As most do,
And we're down to about 150. All right. So we're at about 150. We were a stove shop, so I shut the heat off. Scott was on the phone, and we're good. We're going to put our grains in here, and then we're going to turn the heat back on.
ready to stir it?
Yeah, I'm ready to stir.
I'm just going to stir as I pour these in.
Try to avoid too much lumps, but I usually just dump it in and deal with lumps on the backside.
We got enough water in here, it shouldn't be too bad. It's going to be kind of a thinner mash. And some people do. Although, I'm not pouring real slow, but I'm not trying to dump it all in there. And, Just doing a fine job of stirring and keeping up here. I think it should all work out very well.
We'll take a quick temperature reading, see how far we dropped before we turn the heat back on, just kind of out of idle curiosity.
I guess we dropped a good 20 degrees, I bet.
Oh, I don't think we dropped that far. But definitely with this method, when you're as you're taking temperature readings throughout, it's kind of want to stir the mash a little bit because you're going to have hot spots and cold spots, so you want to take 2 or 3 readings as you go. It looks like we're at about 144-ish, 140, 142, 144, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we definitely want to pull it back up a little bit. Doesn't take too much to get the temperature back up where we want it here. The temperatures are pretty low. It doesn't take a lot of heat at a low temperature to raise it up. So we'll probably be back up in, 5-10 minutes. And then we're going to let it sit for an hour. And with the amount of grain we get in there, and the amount of water, it's not going to cool down too much. If we get it up to 152, by the time we pull it off in an hour, it might be down to 150. If we were any lower than that, I'd be surprised. So,
That's a pretty low gravity beer. It's going to be a quaffer.
yeah, it's not. We're not making something to knock your socks off. Just something to hang out and drink. 9 pounds is a little bit on the low side. It could have went a little higher, but I didn't. So,
Okay.
that was $16 in grain.
They all have
I've already
their place,
got
yeah.
$16 in grain. I've already got the hops, leftover hops from other batches I brewed. And I got some recovered yeast that we'll use. So all said and done, pretty cheap batch of beer. That's what's a case at Walmart? $12 if you're buying Labatt's.
12?
No,
okay,
case.
more than that. A little more than $12.
Ah, there you go. See? Wow, what's a case of Labatt's run these days?
Well, at Rite Aid, out the door, it says $20.
$20.
But
So less than a case of beer.
most of it right now is, again, that comes to almost $20, 19 and change, after you pay tax and deposit and everything. So. But this is going to be 2 cases of beer.
This is going to be 2 cases of beer. That's the plan.
Right. In batch sparging, basically you take your first runnings and then you add
Yeah,
more
add the
water and
whole
let
next
it,
round.
maybe let that chill for 10 minutes
And
and
then
then take
that
some
out.
more runnings.
When the
When you're fly sparging, you're adding water at the same time as you're filling your boil kettle.
And it's
So
more of a
kind
consistent,
on the
the whole
fly.
time it's going. And that's kind of what I do. I'll take out
Right.
2 quarts or a gallon. I'll put 2 quarts in, take out 2 quarts, add another gallon. So it's kind of a mix between the two. It's not consistently adding 3 ounces of water a minute or whatever. It's
For people who fly sparge, generally there's 2 ways to do it. Either one, you have a pump, which we obviously don't.
or where'd I put my pump?
Or you have a 3-tier system and use gravity as your pump.
Which I don't have
We
that
don't have that either.
It's slow.
We're just 2 guys brewing.
Hey, I've got most of this stuff in my garage when my wife wasn't looking.
Yeah, if you get into this hobby thinking you're going to save money, you got a great sense of humor.
You do save money per batch, but the overhead, especially once you get into all grain. All grain is,
That's where you get the most savings.
You do. I owe $16 for my grain, and I'm using, found hops and found yeasts. It's not. You go plant your own rhizomes. You got hops growing in your own backyard. So it's not like a huge investment per batch, but it's the equipment that you keep buying to make it more efficient.
If you start buying your grains by the sack,
55 pounds of grain.
mega savings. It's way cheaper than.
Talk to your local home brewer and say, hey, what if I buy when you put an order in, I order a whole bag, and I'm sure they'll give you a smoking deal.
Or your homebrew club, maybe once or twice a year, if you get involved with a local homebrew
Yeah,
club.
they may put
might do a batch.
They may put a batch order
a
in.
group buy-in, and then you buy them by the pallet, and prices can get really good.
Yeah, well, you've been buying hops by the pound, right?
Yeah.
Considering, a an ounce of hops can run you $2,
Couple
$3,
bucks.
$4.
And a pound of hops can run you 12 or 13 bucks.
So you do the math, yeah. 16 ounces in a pound, you're less than $1
Kind of cut the
an
price
ounce.
in half. Yeah.
Efficiency of,
Scale.
there you go, that's it, efficiency of scale.
About 158, that's not too hot. It's definitely on the high end though, isn't it?
A little bit, but I gave
No, actually you turned the camera on.
Oh, I thought I turned
Because
it
I
off.
turned it off.
Oh, okay. I thought I turned it off.
Well, as long as the camera's rolling, we were talking and accidentally forgot to pay attention to the temperature. And we got up to 158, which is about 2 degrees higher than you really want. 156 is usually the max. So we could end up with a real sweet low alcohol beer.
I don't think we would. No,
We
it
could.
won't be.
It's definitely warmer than we wanted it. Our efficiencies probably won't be quite where we want them. But like I said, this pot, with that amount of grain, that amount of water, it's probably not going to drop too much. And even if it did, it's too late. The enzymes are either dead or they're not.
Yeah, what we're doing here is we're converting starches in the grains into fermentable sugars. And when you mash too high,
The enzymes get killed, destroyed. Not killed, they're not alive, but they break down.
or the sugars that they make are a longer molecular chain that the yeast can't digest so well, so you get unfermentable sugars. I mean, they're still sugars, but they're more complex sugars, or they're not quite as simple. And the yeast have trouble digesting them. They're unfermentable. And you get a sweet beer with low alcohol when you mash it, if your mash temperatures are too high.
Yeah. How did that one, you had one where you did that?
You know, it wasn't terrible after I did the math and everything. I think it ended up like at 3.7 or 3.8 alcohol by volume. It was a little sweet, but
A little sweet,
it wasn't terrible.
And you were, what temperature were you?
I was in the 160s, you know,
So-
more like mash out temperatures.
So yeah.
And it's the first time I ever did it, made that mistake. It was a big, good learning experience. And once I realized it and I shut off the heat, I went and sat down and started Googling, in 20 minutes at the computer before, you can't go backwards.
You can't go backwards. That's all you know. It's like throwing cold water in here isn't going to help.
Actually, at that
It might
time
help
frame,
a
it
little.
wouldn't have hurt.
Might help a little, but
Either way, 158 is not the end. I mean, it's very the upper end of the range.
It is.
But it's not out of range. I think it's still in the range.
Is it? I thought the top of the range was 156.
I think it's like 148 to 156, 158. So.
But then again, my thermometer might be up by a degree or two.
It'll be fine.
It wasn't when we calibrated it, but hey, hope springs eternal.
Now, it might feel a little more comfortable too if we had more like 12 pounds of grain in there instead of 9.
Well,
but stirring it in a pot like that, I think ought to be really good for efficiency.
yeah, as opposed to having it in a bag. Normally, I would cover this to kind of keep the temperature where it's at, but I have no problem with it cooling down. It's not going to cool down that much. Yeah, we're still at 158. We will be there probably pretty close. I may drop down to 157, 156 even without a cover on it, but I'm not worried about keeping the heat in.
No. Different brews for different styles, it can affect your mouthfeel a little bit. I've seen recipes where you mash at 148,
Yeah,
Whether you do it for 60 minutes or 90 minutes.
Most mashes that I've done are generally right around, well, it depends. On a single infusion, it's almost always 60 minutes. If you get into step mashing, you're doing 10 minutes here, 10 minutes at this temperature, 5 minutes of this, and they got to heat it up between. So it can extend your mash out an hour and a half, 2 hours, just simply because it takes that long to raise it up and then you got to hold it again. This is my wife's cooler, and she gets very upset when I use this for making beer. So fortunately for me, she's out of town this week. It's got a little spigot down here. Just make sure that's good and closed. Inside, no cobwebs, no dirt, no leaves or anything floating around in there. Generally, you probably want to rinse it out before you start. It does not need to be sanitized or sterilized by any stretch. Because basically whatever goes in here comes out, and then we're going to boil it. So as long as you're not getting any foreign matter in, you're good.
Whatever's in there, we're gonna brew.
Yeah. Now, you want some kind of a screen.
Some kind of a screen you got there, Chris.
This is. You want something to kind of lay in the bottom. There's a little trough in there when you got your ice in there and it's melting, you can open this up and let the water out so that your bologna and hot dog buns don't get wet. Which is the perfect place for your liquor to come out. So I just put these on top of there. Now, is there better? Oh yeah. You come up with a lot better than this.
We'll show you that in another episode.
Yeah, but this works.
Yep.
And I usually put a plate in the back here. Get it up a little bit so there's a little bit of a little more slope,
drain going.
so that the water's coming this way.
Drain.
Yeah. Yep. I got some sparge water cooking up over here. Basically, you want that to rinse the sugars out of the grains after you got it in
Looking
there.
at how that's steaming, you're probably getting up around 170 degrees or
Yeah.
better. So
Yeah.
it might be, where do you want to be on that?
Yeah, I read somewhere that it doesn't matter what your sparge temperature is on your sparge water, but you don't want it too cold. So, boiling is okay. I mean, other than you're likely to burn yourself, but you don't want it at 90 degrees because it's not going to run your
Too hot
sugars
is
up.
okay.
Too hot's okay. Too cold is bad.
Alright.
But yeah, you definitely 170. You don't want to be really don't want to be much cooler than 170.
Yeah,
We're
170
trying-
I know it, but I didn't know that you could be 210 also. Or
Yeah, well, I don't know that you want to spend all the BTUs to get to 210.
You're
You know, if you're at 170, you're good. So, we're just trying to get this, trying to get this up to
168 is,
mash out temperature. So we want to get this up to 170.
I mashed at 168.
Yeah, we somewhere in that neighborhood. Our temperature definitely dropped. We went from 158 down to about 150. A little more than I expected. That's mostly probably because of the smallness of the grain bill. We got 9 pounds of grain instead of like 12. According to Brewer's Friend, we should be somewhere around 4.5% ABV.
It'll be fine. Yeah.
It'll be a fine drinkable beer. A lot of home brews are right in that neighborhood. Now, that said, we may be a little lower than that actually because we mashed at a higher temperature than we wanted to. So we'll take gravity readings and figure it out.
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. But actually, what are these things? We can probably kind of
Yeah.
knock these right off.
So we're going to mash it for about an hour and we're going to move on to the sparging process.
Figure out what we're going to do for hops. We got half an ounce of Fuggles at 5.2% alphas. Half an ounce of UK Challenger at 6.9%, and about a fifth of an ounce of East Kent Golding at 7.2%. We're going to throw all those in at 60 minutes. That'll be our bittering hops. And then I got some crystal hops here. They're 4.1. We're going to use those for aroma at about 5 minutes. So we've determined that we're going to call this an American Pale Ale, well within the parameters with the grain we got and the hops we're using. And then the yeast is an American Ale yeast. Actually, this is Y yeast 1056. Looks like I harvested it November 10th, and this is a second generation yeast. All that liquid on top is
Beer.
beer.
Drink
You don't want to
it.
dump that out.
Drink it. Drink it.
Bacteria-laden
It's full, yeah.
swill, which wants the stuff on the bottom.
Actually, all the bacteria is in that beer. On the top.
That's you
You probably don't want to throw the crap off the top.
A lot of people do. What I would do is I'd decant off most of the beer. I'd leave a little bit and then swirl that up just to get
Just,
to
oh yeah, to
get
make
the
sure
least,
you don't want to loosen it up.
so I can dump the yeast.
Because the yeast
cake.
is sitting, that yeast
Right.
on the bottom is
It's
sitting
kind of
there.
a cake. It's kind of thick and solid.
Yeah, and it's going to stick to the bottom. So you definitely want
So just for ease of use, 3/4 of that beer would be gone, and then the last quarter I would just swirl it all up, shake it up, and
We're about 170, maybe 172 somewhere there. I'm not gonna wait till it goes all the way up.
flame out, we're good.
yeah, 170 is fine.
Yeah,
168 I think is where you want to be, in my opinion.
I agree. Okay. Alrighty, so now we want to get this from here into there. It's big
Alright.
and heavy, and I'm not going to pick it up and
And
dump
it's
it.
really hot.
Yeah, I'm
so-
not going to pick it up and dump it. I am going to scoop.
Okay. I'm gonna stand back and let him scoop. I don't want to be in his way. I don't want him to get burned. I don't want myself to get burned.
And I definitely want to try and get some of the, you know what, did you hand me a plate though? I want to get some of the, as much of the grain as I can, because what you're going to do is you're going to
This
form,
one?
that'll work, yeah.
Okay.
You want to form a grain bed in the bottom of this, and the grain bed is what all the liquid runs through.
It's gonna be your filter.
It then becomes a filter. So actually, it's a bed.
This will work better in your kitchen if that.
If this
was
opened the other way, yeah, I thought of that. I thought of that every time I do this.
So we're pouring our porridge
Yep, that's about what it
into our
is.
cooler.
Hot cereal. Mush, mash. What is it? They gruel. That's it.
Gruel.
Gruel. That's what you feed prisoners, right? Gruel.
Sure.
Once I get it down to a certain point, I can just pick it up and dump it. But
I like the sweet smell that's
Yeah, it
going
does.
on right here. And, it's
it does smell good. And I can almost guarantee at some point tonight, I'm going to end up with grain and water all over my floor, because it happens almost every time. But I do try to keep as much as much of it off the floor as I can.
If you were to taste the grain coming out of there right now, it is really sweet. It's a sweet, sugary sort of, I don't know, boiled grape nuts or something, you know, like that cereal.
Yeah.
I wonder, you know, if it would soften up. I mean, yeah, it's really good. It actually could be a breakfast, you know, almost eating it.
Yep. And I'm going to definitely want to put this whole load in there. And then once we start siphoning it off, or we open that little spigot there, it's going to come out like crazy. And it's going to be all full of grain. And that we kind of want to hold off to the side and then kind of dump it back in.
That's called pour lofting, and what that does is it compacts your grain, but you're making the filter. As that water runs out the bottom, the grain all settles down even more, and you get a bunch of fine stuff. You pour that back in on top, and the grain filters that out. The grain becomes like a sand filter or something.
Exactly. Now, there are a few things that can go wrong with this, and it's easier for them to go wrong with this method than if you're doing it right. One is you can get what's called channels, and that's where the liquid actually forms a like a tunnel or a channel through the grain, and all the water wants to run right through there instead of filtering through the grain, so it's not actually pulling the sugars out.
Your
It's
filter's
just
not
running
working.
right through.
Okay, your filter's not working.
And
You're not, yeah, right. You're leaving that. So the whole idea here is to rinse those grains of the sugar. We're trying to rinse the sugar out of the grains.
Right, because we don't want the grain in
But we
there.
don't want the grain, so we filter the grain with the grain itself. But the sugar dissolves in the
I
water.
still got some grain left in there. What I'm gonna do
Pour
is,
pour one of them hot. Your hot.
well, I will. What I'll do is I'm
Water.
gonna use this actually. Alright, so, like I said, for the first one,
Why don't you use that 2 liter, that 2-quart one?
that's, because that's too small.
The Vortelock one?
Yes.
You can't, do you have trouble closing that back up or something? Or?
Here, why don't you step over here? There you go. No, because it just so much comes out so fast. I usually actually use that smaller pot there, but I got it full of water right now. So you can see that coming out like crazy. And all this is going to have to go back in. So I want to get it down, get the grain settled down, and I want to get to a manageable flow because this is coming out too fast right now. I've got probably 2 gallons already out of there. Let's see where we're at here. All right. There's definitely some grain in there. Now, this is my cheat here. I run it up through a strainer so I can keep the grain out. But actually, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to be rinsing this out anyways because there's still grain in there. As you can see, I got a little bit of grain on the bottom there, just maybe a 1/10 of an ounce or something like that. Not a lot. Eventually, at some point, I'm going to there's not much left in there. So I'm just going to rinse that out with the water in the sink and dump it, basically
You're
lose
not going to
what's
worry
left.
about losing that grain.
I'm not worried about, there's not enough in here to worry about. And like I said, there are much better methods than this. This is the real down and dirty method. But it's been working for me. I've made some pretty darn good beers this way. The more grain you end up with in your final boil, the cloudier your beer is going to be.
Yeah, you kind of want to not have the grain into your boil if you can help it. You know. But even with brewing a bag, doing it that way, the bag is your filter. You still end up with some. I just have them crushing your grains. I mean, there's some flour in there, and that, you know, even that comes through a bag. Or
And I will get some grain in here, I can guarantee that.
you're going to end up with some trouble in your fermenter. The more you can cut it down along the way, the better off you'll be.
Alright, there's definitely a bit left in the bottom there. But as we keep dumping it in here, we'll get less and less.
See now,
I'm kind of wondering.
I think you should just take that and just kind of dump it down along the edge of your, like this.
I got all this to dump in there yet.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, eventually it should start to run clear.
Yeah, well,
No?
you would think.
Like, it's
It
your
does when I
system.
start adding the water.
It's your system. It's not.
Yeah,
It's the first time I've actually been here to witness you doing it.
no, it's actually the second.
Well, I can't remember the other one, so it's all good.
A little bit less grain this time than the last time. I've done. You can get a stuck sparge, and that's where your
Water
liquid's
don't
not
come
coming
out.
out at all, or it comes out really, really slow. Now I'm kind of wondering if I've got some channels or something in there because
Coming up pretty good.
it's coming out pretty good, considering how much I can't even see it. Usually I got to keep the water level right at the top of the grain. So I'm thinking I might almost need to stir that a little bit and break up any channels that are in there. Or my screens might have slipped a little bit. And the one definitely seemed like it was giving me some grief, so that's a possibility too.
I think you should show me a good shot of your strainer. You're using there.
Okay.
Just a
This
little.
is not a good strainer, but
That's what he's using?
it's got a little hole in it there. But just a little fine mesh strainer. I used to have a bigger one, and I miss it terribly. I really should go out and buy one. I'm going to dump this back in now. The fact that that's bubbling is not good. Everything seems to be in where it's supposed to be, but that bubble tells me that there was probably some kind of a channel that I just collapsed. That was allowing my water to run through pretty freely. I don't think we're going to have that issue anymore. I just dump more in there, so it's a good chance it's going to come out.
Put the pan under there. Put the big pot under there.
No faith, no confidence.
I don't see where it hurts.
Yeah. I'm just going to dump that back in because
It
that
was
is definitely
just
full of.
spill.
Told it's going to spill all over. Usually I have a corny keg sitting down here and I don't have as much room to work with. But actually I probably could have that pot underneath there. But yeah, we're definitely getting a much better filter there. I'm getting a lot less grain coming through. Very little green came through that time. I've noticed that the smaller grain bills, it tends to be a little tougher to get a decent filter going. Now, if you're doing something like a wheat beer,
Wheat or rye.
something other than
Barley.
you want them, if you got like a pound of wheat, it's not usually a big deal, but if you're going with, like something that's got 4 or 5 pounds of wheat in it, you're probably going to want to use some rice hulls in there. The wheat tends to clump and they settle out a
It's
lot.
kind of sticky.
Yeah, where in the rice hulls, they do add absolutely nothing to the beer one way or the other. They don't really,
Yeah, no flavor, no alcohol, no fermentable
nothing.
sugars.
What they do is they prevent you from getting a stuck sparge. They keep the
Stuck sparge is when you open the plug at the bottom of the cooler and no water comes out. The thing is full of water,
or very
very little.
But you can see it's coming out a lot slower now. And that's kind of what you want. You don't want it to come out too slow, but you definitely don't want it to come out about like that. And what we're going to start doing now is we're definitely don't have as much water in there as we're going to want. So I'm going to start throwing some water in on top. To kind of force everything through.
And technically what you're doing right now is fly sparging. Because you aren't draining it at the same time.
See, I put a little lid on top and it's coming out a little fast now. And this, once I start doing this, it runs much clearer. There's much less grain coming out. So it's definitely starting to settle down. and give us a nice filter bed down there. Now usually when you're sparging, you would keep running the liquor back through until it ran clear. You wouldn't use this little strainer like I'm using. But with this method, it'll never run clear. At least it never has for me. So. We put our wort chiller in at 15 and our Irish moss in at 15.
Getting down to the end of our boil.
Yep, we're gonna put in a, this is not working good at all. Put in an ounce of hops, of the crystal hops here. Alright, so we got an ounce of crystal hops here, and it is 5 minutes before the end of our boil. Alright, we're done. Alright, so we're at flame out. We're going to hook this up to our water supply there and chill it down.
What can I do to help you? Take that off. All right. You gotta take them over. You're gonna bring that here, right?
Yeah. Ready?
Yep. So we're cooling, chilling,
We're chilling.
chilling,
Chillaxing.
Order.
Alrighty. Let's got some sanitizing solution in here. Start getting everything all sanitized up. This is more.
Plastic buckets rock. I think they're a really good thing to use. I enjoy my L pails. Don't use anything. It's not where you want to have an SOS pad or. Gotta go to the dollar store and pick up sponges and stuff like car wash stuff. You know, don't use anything on your ale pails that you wouldn't use on your Maserati. But you gotta.
We're at about 84 here. Let's get this thing.
84.
Yeah. That's good enough.
Where do you want to go with it?
Into this bucket.
Is that pretty clean?
Yeah. It starts in it.
What do you want me to do?
I don't know. Why don't you, here, why don't you do this and I'll take care of the yeasties.
Alright. I'm gonna do this for a little while then. Right away. Just to try to drain. Without
That's good. There
fucking
ain't much in there.
No, don't fear the bubbles either. It's all good. Alright. Been here, done that before.
Alright, so he's gonna,
You're happy with how all this is?
yeah, we'll get that cleaned up later. Alright, so
I'm going anywhere.
we're at about 84 degrees. So it could be a little cooler, but I want to get this done. I'm dumping out the sludge off the top of this yeast.
Yeah, 84 is pretty warm. But, okay.
Yeah, I can definitely
I'd
get
rather
that.
be 72 or even 62.
Yeah, I can relate.
No problem. It'll work. 82 is not going to kill your yeast. It's not going to...
Just pumpy. There we go. Little smudge off the bottom.
Not putting any yeast in there anyway, so...
I just did.
It's not putting any yeast in there anyway. We obviously have slightly different ideas as to,
Scott figures the more Trub he throws in, the better product he gets.
Well, there's yeast and there's shrub and
And I
there's...
figured the more yeast I throw in, the better product I'm gonna get. And yes, I probably should do a starter on these, but I've never had a problem yet, so I'm not gonna worry too much about it. No, we don't want that in there. That's nasty. You know, if you want to put that in a gallon or something, have fun. But I would just dump that right down the drain.
Beer.
We could
no
filter
doubt.
that through. We could filter that through a bag, a mesh bag.
You got one?
Yeah, you got 100 of them actually. All right, here. You want to dump that through here?
Where? No, not...
Yeah. You want? Man, you are greedy.
Just risky.
That'll be fine.
Yeah, where are your other stock pots that you were boiling water to and
They're all
stuff?
gone. Just dump it in here. Just dump it through this. This will capture most of the crap.
All right, I'm there. I'm doing it. More air. More air, man. Need more air. Chunks. Oh, chunks.
All right. Hang it like a cheese.
Where's your cover?
Yeah, it's around.
Right here?
Yeah. Sounds right.
You got it all sterilized?
Yep.
And,
Yep. The only thing I don't have sterilized is the airlock. Go ahead. That's all set. Grab an airlock. Capping bottles. Having a nice big thing here, lip, gives you a much better seal. This
don't use twist off.
these well the twist. It's not that it's a twist off. It's that the lip here that your capper grabs onto is way too high, so you don't get enough downward pressure on the sides, and it doesn't. It's a lot harder to get it to seal.
Don't use twist off.
Well, twist off works fine. Bullshit. Never made a problem with those tonight. They break. They're thinner, but all right. Were you gonna dump this in there or no? Did I gotta dump it in?
Dump it in.
Here at Dunkirk Homebrew, we offer a wide selection. Our malt extracts are Breese liquid, Munton's liquids, Breese dry malt extracts, Brewer's Best beer ingredient kits, and we carry a full line of grains from Avantgarde, German malt, Dingemans, Munton's, Breese, a full line of specialty grains, special B, flaked rice, white wheat, you name it, we've got it. And we will crush it for you, no charge.
So this is our episode 7. It's actually a redo of our episode 7. The original beer ended up with a contamination. This is a rebrew. Doesn't have exactly 100% the same hops as the original, but it's really close. It's a real similar hop and malt. It does have the same yeast, so it should be very close. But it's a little flat because this growler did not hold the carbonation as well as it should have for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks that it's been sitting.
Well, I can go first.
Yeah,
I
go
guess
ahead.
I'm done.
Give it a
I was
stir.
kind of generous. Not good.
Fill in your numbers.
Yeah, numbers are hard. I ended up giving it a 37, which puts it in a good beer category. Very good, actually. But yeah, for aroma, I can smell the hops and the sweetness. I can smell them both, and they're all right.
Okay, my camera. Oh,
It's a little flat, which I think takes away from a lot of the categories, as far as appearance and mouthfeel. And I said there's some sweetness and some bitterness and that little fruity going on that we're not sure what it's from. But it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's good. I kind of like the smell of it. And my final comment is, it's a decent beer.
So read through your numbers there.
Okay, for aroma I gave it a 10 out of 12. Appearance I gave it a 2 out of 3 because it's flat and no head. Flavor I gave it 15 out of 20. Mouthfeel I gave it 3 out of 5. Just, again, because 7 out of 10 for overall impression. Added them all up and it came out to 37. So.
And this is a historic first. My numbers are a lot lower than Scott's, and I don't think it's because I don't like the beer. I think I'm just being more critical than usual. On aroma, I gave it a 4 out of 12. I think it's a little weak in aroma. It doesn't have a lot of smell to it. You know, I smell it. I don't really smell beer. And there's definitely a sweetness. Yeah, you can kind of smell the sweetness in there. So that's 4 out of 12. Appearance, I gave it a 1 out of 3. I think it definitely could be clearer. I'm not impressed with. It could be. I don't know if that's like a chill haze or what, but it could. It's definitely a little bit cloudy, and the lack of carbonation, I think, really deters from the head retention. If it was a little fresher, I think it probably would have been better in that respect. Flavor, I gave it a 10 out of 20. Very slightly sharp flavor, not real bad. Definitely has a nice hops bitterness to the finish to the end, and there's some minor fruity esters. Like I said, I gave it a 10 out of 20 there. Then the rest of it, pretty well in line with Scott there. 3 out of 5 for mouthfeel, mostly on the carbonation, I think. And the overall impression, 7 out of 10. And I think it's actually one of our better brews. I'd say it's definitely in the, it's not the best we've ever done, but it's definitely on the higher end.
I'd say in the top half, sure.
Yeah, definitely. So I give it a 25 out of 50.
As far as aroma, I gave it a 6, and because you're right, there's not a whole lot there, but there wasn't anything bad either. And so, I mean, not all beers really have a remarkable nose, and this doesn't have, obviously, aroma hops aren't a major player here. So yeah. I gave it a 6 because I smell a bit of something I'm calling juicy fruit. It's sort of like a nondescript. It's fruit aspect, but it's nondescript. So I just, I'm sort of smelling that. Appearance, I gave it 2 out of 3, and I didn't really take away from the fact that it wasn't carbonated because that was an accident of how it was stored more than so. But probably I should have, and that I should have been come down. Carbonation would have given it some head retention and would have given it some effervescence, better appearance, and better flavor. It would have,
I think all the numbers would have been higher.
Everything would have been better. Yeah.
Mouthfeels.
But I didn't take away from it for that. So, so I said slightly cloudy, amber, clean. There's nothing in there that shouldn't be, other than the fact that it's a bit cloudy. No head retention. So, flavor, malty, almost sweet, but hot bitter finish, provides good balance, juicy fruit hints in the flavor too. I give it a 12 out of 20. Good mouthfeel. I like that mouthfeel. And again, I did not take it away from it because of the lack of carbonation. It would be better with that. But I like a beer that's got some body to it, and it's almost always my preference, unless it's really a hot day and I really want a lawnmower beer. I just appreciate something with some body, and this, to me, it's just fits me perfectly. Mm-hmm. So I give it a 5. Subjective. Overall impression, 7 out of 10. Nice, drinkable, balanced, 32 total.
Great. Fantastic. And we got more of this, so it'll probably taste better after we drink some of these other ones.